our podcast. I am thrilled to have a really good friend of mine, Alisha Jensen, joining us today. We are going to be talking about core beliefs as it relates to rewiring the brain and taking control over where our brains go and how we interpret information, which is a really key part of being able to rewire the brain. And I think Alisha is a super good example of effectively doing this, and also just a great person. So I thought that she would be a fun guest to join us to talk about this topic. So, Alisha, you want to say anything?
Well, thanks. It's fun to be here. I sure enjoy this material. I love stuff that makes your life better, and this is one of those.
Yes, it is. So let's start a little bit just talking about what core beliefs are. Core beliefs are work as a mental filter through which we process information. So we interpret everything that happens. If I move my computer that much and you're watching this, you'll interpret why I did that, and we assign meaning to everything, and the meanings that we assign get filtered through our core beliefs, and so these core beliefs are kind of foundational beliefs or statements that we have that we take as givens. So there are things like people don't like me, or people value me, or I'm a good listener, or I'm a good friend. Keep getting a little bit of feedback. Can you hear that?
Mm-mm.
You get a little bit of echo sometimes. And so those are kind of examples of core beliefs, and we'll talk about them, of course, as we move along here. But Alisha, in your life, how have you noticed core beliefs affecting you and your relationships and your parenting and those kinds of things?
Oh, wow. Well, since I became aware that maybe not everything I was seeing and doing was reality per se, I've become so much more aware just of the things in my head and how they're kind of dictating how I still see things. And it's always so interesting, the change inside of me that happens when I question that. When I'll sense that I'm going in a direction, then I'll be like, wait a second, why am I going there? And then I question it. Then all of a sudden, everything in my body and my mind changes. And I think it's not necessarily reality, what I'm experiencing here. It's kind of just something that's how I'm interpreting it. And I'd like to see things more clearly, right?
Yes. And you bring up a really good point, which, part of seeing things more clearly starts with recognizing the subjective nature of our thoughts. Right? I mean, we tend to take it as a given that our thoughts are accurate, and lots of us think that our thoughts are objective. In reality, our thoughts are very subjective and based on our perceptions, right? And so whatever information we have, we can only use the information we have to interpret something, and that changes based on the angle that we're looking at something, or how much of what's going on in somebody else we have access to, and all of those kinds of things. And so it's a really good point that it's super powerful, I think, just to recognize that our thoughts are subjective.
Yes, absolutely.
What have you found helpful as you've kind of taken more control over your thoughts and your life? That's a broad question, but what have you found helpful as you've been more purposeful I think you're a very purposeful person. Um, and anyway, what have you found helpful in that process?
Hmm. Wow. Well, it started off with really kind of choosing to buy into the core belief system, right? Like that was, I think, is a first initial step to even be able to move anywhere, is saying, there really is a system that I was born into. And it's and also saying, it's not like my parents did it on purpose. They didn't create it and say, I'm gonna bring her and make it miserable or great or anything. They just were who they were and the world they lived in. And that's what I was in. And so it started with maybe just taking out all of the power that was in it, I guess. And then just from there saying, now let's look at it and see kind of what I was given. What is my core beliefs? What do they look like? And stop letting them, I don't know, because part of us has this drive of, I don't want to be critical of the things I was given, but I also want to be grateful. I don't know. There's a lot of power that you kind of have to let go somehow in a healthy way to get started.
Yes, several really good points there. Um, One is sort of this false dichotomy that we create in our minds, thinking that if if X is true, then Y isn't true. And so, like, if my parents were good parents, then everything they did was good, right? And recognizing that um, we can be good people and do good things and screw up, right? And one of those things doesn't negate the other one. And all of the principles in my healthy and happy stuff really build on each other. And a few that really tie into this are both understanding neurology and then also attachment. And on the understanding neurology piece, you made reference to the fact that our literally our brains get wired through the interactions with our caregivers, and our primary attachment figures, which are primarily our parents, right? Our mothers and our fathers. And 80% of the brain gets wired by age 3 before most of us are even aware that most people's first memory is somewhere around 3 or 4. Occasionally, somebody will have an actual memory before that, but most of us, our first memories are somewhere around 3 or 4. And so by the time we have any conscious memories, 80% of our brain has already been wired. And then by the time we're age 5, 90% of our brain has been wired. And then from age 5 to about 25, the latest research shows that remaining 10% gets wired. And so literally, we as parents wire the roadmap of core beliefs into our children. And literally, our roadmaps were wired by our parents. And recognizing, like you said, that occurred, and the, I don't know what the right word is, subjective sort of biased nature of that. And again, I know very few parents who are like, I'm going to intentionally harm my kid, right? I mean, I don't know that I've ever, in the 24 years that I've been doing this, had anybody say that to me. But the reality is that as imperfect people, um, we do the best we can, and we end up creating a lot of unhealthy core beliefs, and most all of us have some of those unhealthy core beliefs that have been wired into us. So as you became aware of the reality of this process, then what?
Then it was beginning to recognize kind of what those patterns were, what they tended to look like in my own life, like where I tended to go. and then what the feelings tended to be created after that. And I was able to pick out some pretty frequent paths that I was taking all the time, and then at that point I kind of had to take myself out of it and not either get too hard on myself about it, because it's not necessarily anyone's fault. It just kind of is. But that was hard for a while. It's not so much anymore. Now I just want to really change and let go of them. But it can be hard at the beginning, just to be letting go of that, either shaming yourself about it or feeling like somehow it's your fault that you're doing it. It's somebody's fault. And this is, I don't know, there's a lot you have to kind of let go and let it sit and be a somehow objective.
Yeah. Can you think of any examples of those that you would feel comfortable sharing?
Well, there's a lot. Let's see. I do tend to get overwhelmed when I'm in crowds or with lots of people, and I found myself often having these really high expectations of social situations, that I needed to behave this certain way. I can't even tell you exactly what that certain way was, but in my mind I knew that it had to be. And so I was always feeling nervous whenever, because I never could achieve those level of whatever it was I was expecting of myself. And yet it was getting in the way, because I craved connection and I craved being with people. And so I started by just feeling the anxiety I would feel, and really just recognizing that it was a pattern and that there wasn't necessarily any truth to it. Where are these high expectations that I was asking of myself? What are they really? And so I then practiced different prepared responses. We're trying to undo it.
Yeah. So what do you try to think instead of that?
So I sat and tried a bunch of them, but the one that works the best for me right now, that kind of dispels that any types of anxiety or nervousness, is just telling myself that people like being around me. People enjoy being around me, and there is no big expectations. I'm only human, and so are they, and we're all just here to have a good time. What's the big deal? Essentially, it kind of frames around those, and it's been powerful.
Yeah.
So it goes to show that it can seem simple to someone else, but your own, whatever is going on in your own neurology, is powerful. And I'm trying to rewire it by just saying that over and over, and it surprisingly powerful. Such a simple little phrase.
Right. Well, and that's and I can attest to the fact that you are very pleasant to be around, and and those new core beliefs and interpretations are much more accurate than those other ones that you were following. And one of the kind of powerful and tricky things about this too is I hear people say all the time, as we identify healthy core beliefs like that, like, okay, yeah, I know that nobody's perfect, or we're all doing our best. We intuitively know that, right? And there's part of your brain, your frontal lobes, that understand that truth. At the same time, for many of us, there's a disconnect between those understood truths and how we feel, and the neurology that we've been wrapped in. And so part of the process of changing those things is really sort of connecting the dots between what we cognitively understand and know in our left brain, and what we feel in our right brain. And the the marriage of those two. So you've got your logical brain, and you've got your emotional brain, and then in the middle is what is referred to as your wise brain, that incorporates both logic and feeling, and connecting the dots on those things, and what we sort of conceptually understand and what we believe is a really important process. And you also hit another really important point, which is it's not rocket science. It isn't like you have to go through this really complicated rubric of things. Our as organs, our brains will go where we direct them to go, if we will direct them. If we don't direct them, they will default to whatever we were given. But if we're willing to take our brains by the reins, it's a little catchy phrase, huh? If we're willing to take our brains by the hand and direct where they go, our brains are eager to follow us and will follow us if we will direct them. And that's and it's just it's a matter, you described it really well. It's a matter of identifying what the unhealthy core belief is, and then identifying some alternatives. And sometimes you have to try a few on, right? You have to say, well, yeah, this doesn't quite feel like it fits, and you have to try that a little bit, and then you can grab some that feel good, and then you can go with them. That's a really good point. I know many of you will be listening to this and not see the drawing that I'm going to do right now, but I'll try to describe it a little bit too, because I think it's helpful to kind of conceptualize how core beliefs look. And so I'm drawing a picture of a filter, and that is where the core belief is. And so if I have a belief that nobody likes me, or maybe I'm not likable, we have data coming at us all the time, and I'm drawing that as a representation of different shapes. I've drawn a rectangle and a triangle and a circle, and maybe a star, and the opening of the filter lets in the rectangle shape really well. And so data that is congruent with our core beliefs, we don't have any problem incorporating and accepting that data. So if I believe that nobody likes me, and I don't get asked to the dance that I want to go to, or I don't get hired at a certain job, I apply to school and I don't get in, or there's a party and I don't get invited to it, or whatever. My brain doesn't have any problem gobbling up that kind of data, because it's totally congruent with the way that I view the world. However, when we get data that is incongruent with our core beliefs, so say I get offered the job of my dreams, or the boy or the girl that I absolutely want to go to the dance with asks me. I get whatever that data is. I make the play that I tried out for, or whatever. Then our brains have a little bit of a problem, right? Because I've got this data that is incongruent with the way that I view the world. And so what most of us do in those moments is we squish that data, we reinterpret it and massage it into something that doesn't contradict or challenge our core beliefs. So in the case of a job, if I get offered a job that I've really wanted, I might say, well, yeah, but that's just because nobody else applied. Or once they find out that I'm really not that capable, then they're going to let me go. Or that boy only asked me to the dance because he felt sorry for me. We do those kinds of things where we we massage the data so that we can safeguard our core beliefs. If, on the other hand, we take the opportunity to use that data, that discrepant or contradictory data, to challenge the core belief, then we can start to change the core belief. And if, like you said, Alisha, if we intentionally give our brain something else to think about, then we can start looking for data that is congruent with the new belief, right? And so, like in the case that you said, you go into a social situation and you're thinking, people like me, people respond well to me, and then you start noticing that a conversation went well, or somebody approached you and asked you how you were doing or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Thoughts on that?
Oh, well, it's when I think about these types of things, it's surprising to me how it seems like such a little thing to be purposeful and to look at yourself and to see where things aren't going well in your life, and to create little prepared responses and work with them. But man, they can be so powerful.
So
That's
powerful.
what um that's what keeps me most interested about this type of concept, because I love the concept of change and be able to become the best version of ourselves. And it's really not possible if we're walking around not even aware or being really purposeful of what's going on. Because, like you said, we'll keep trying to make everything work and change and keep telling ourselves the same essentially lies about ourselves and about the world. And that doesn't help us become who we really can become.
No, it doesn't. Nor does it help us be happy, right?
Right. Or help us be happy.
Because cognitive distortions or unhealthy core beliefs um, do not help us feel better about ourselves. They're always destructive. I wish that you guys that are listening could have a sneak peek into how well Alisha has done with this stuff. I think that you're such a good example. I've watched like the way that you've that it's affected the way that you interface with your family of origin, and the changes that you've been able to make in how you interface in your marriage and in your parenting. And I don't think you even realize how really how stellar of a job you have done in taking control of what you do and where your brain goes. It's really awesome, and I wish all of you listening could see how great of a job she has and does do at this. So anyway, that's just a little pat on the back there. I don't know how to ask what I want to ask. How do you feel like being aware of your interpretations and your core beliefs has influenced some of your relationships, some of the important relationships in your life?
Um, well, that's a good question. Well, it hasn't made anything worse, and like it's opened my eyes to how things kind of how they really are, how I really want them to look, and it's kind of taken away the powerlessness that we can feel sometimes. Like I just can't. What is the rub here? I don't even know. And now I feel like I can see it, and and I can always kind of work on something. I have something I can be looking at or working on, I guess.
Yeah, and you hit a really good point that perhaps as if not even more important than the impact that this has on our relationships is what it does in terms of how we feel in our relationships. And so often we feel so powerless to affect change, or to know how to react when our buttons are pushed. And by understanding the relationship between our cognitions and how we feel, and then recognizing that you have power in that, can help decrease the sort of the victimization that other people have the power to create in us, if that makes sense. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Yes, I do think it makes sense. I think a lot of us walk around feeling like we just can't almost escape what life has given us. We can't quite figure our way out of what we're feeling, and we don't even know what we're feeling really. And so I have liked breaking down and figuring out what my core beliefs are, or where my brain is wired to go in places. Because I really want to, like one a major one for me is I want to all the time be giving people the benefit of the doubt, right? And unless I mean, we can just say that as a quaint little phrase. Oh, I'm giving someone the benefit of the doubt, but the truth is it's there all the time. I mean, it's like all the time. Like
Our
it's
toes
not
are being
something we
stepped
can
on
just
constantly.
say. It's something literally every time someone looks at us. So I really like the power we have to start looking at ourselves and recognizing what we feel, and that whenever I start feeling hurt by something that someone else does, guess what? I didn't give them the benefit of the doubt. And instead of sitting there thinking all the time, man, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel this way? Why do I always feel kind of upset? Why do I always feel like I don't like people are not treating me well, right? It takes away
Power.
some of the imprisonment this world can feel like, and in opening up that we really do have a lot of power. I feel that in itself is one of my favorite ones to work on.
Yeah.
I can never have enough of it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think also extending that benefit of the doubt to yourself is
Exactly.
is a big part of this as well, and recognizing that you know progress and change doesn't take place. Rewiring the brain doesn't take place overnight, or even over 6 months or a year. It is, we're here to progress and to move forward, and it's at least a lifelong process of trying to get our wiring more healthy, and giving others the benefit of the doubt in that process, and also giving ourselves the benefit of the doubt is a really important part of that.
Hmm.
I want to shift gears just a little bit and talk about attachment style as it relates to core beliefs. Um, my my buddy Mario asked a good question, about why attachment style is uh, is such a powerful core belief, which is one of the things that I said in one of my posts. And so I want to talk a little about that because I think it's a super powerful core belief. And so, um, and you and I have talked some about this, but attachment style is a belief system about two really important variables. It's a belief system about my worth. How do I believe others view me? Do I expect to matter and to be significant and important in the important relationships in my life? And it's also a belief system about what I expect from intimate or close relationships in my life, in particular around secure based behavior. So, do I expect other people to respond with sensitivity and availability to me, or do I expect them not to? And so, in the case of a secure attachment style, the expectation is that I'm going to matter. I'm significant in people's life. I'm going to be significant. People want me around, and I expect the important people in my life to respond well to me. I expect them to be available, and I expect them to be sensitive. if I have an avoidant attachment style, then I believe just the opposite. I believe that there must be something wrong with me, that the most important people in my life don't seem to really value me or care about me, or that I don't seem to really matter to them. And in terms of what I expect in terms of sensitivity and availability, I don't expect that if I'm avoidant. I expect them to be unavailable. I expect them to be insensitive to me. And then if I'm ambivalent or preoccupied or anxious, all terms used for the same attachment style, then I don't know what to expect. In terms of my value, preoccupied people tend to think that there must be something wrong with me, that I don't seem to know how to get this consistent response from the important people in my life. And in terms of sensitivity and availability, the ambivalent attachment style has no idea what to expect. And they don't know whether they're going to be met with sensitivity and availability when they're in need, or whether they're going to be met with unavailability and or insensitivity. So they don't have a consolidated paradigm or framework. And so how that works in terms of a core belief is that then those beliefs then filter the way that I show up and interact in my intimate or attachment relationships, right? And so if I'm avoidant or detached, how am I going to respond? Well, I'm going to respond. I don't know if this will work, but I'm going to respond like this, right? I'm going to put my back to you, and I'm going to interface with you like that. Well, what does my brain want? I still want to matter to you, right? And I want to feel safe to you, but I don't believe that I'm going to. I believe that I'm not going to matter to you, and I believe that you're not going to really make yourself available or sensitive. So I try to protect myself like this. Because of those core beliefs, I then engage like this. Well, if you're trying to have a relationship with me, how does that feel, Alisha?
Difficult.
Yeah, it feels yucky, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're trying to engage with me, what are you going to do if you're healthy?
Well, if you're healthy, you would probably say something about it. It feels like you're really not connecting with me. You're not really letting me in. I can't really get to you. What can I do to be able to get to you? Try to create.
Exactly. If you're healthy, you're going to address this, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you're going to try to get it working well. But if you keep getting met like this, even though you're trying, if I keep engaging with you like this, eventually, what are you going to do?
Give up.
Yeah, you're going to bail, right? A healthy person is not going to stay in that kind of relationship. And when you do, what is my brain going to say?
This is working.
Of course, of course, of course. She left. Everybody leaves me. Because you've behaved congruently with what I expect. You've behaved congruently with my core beliefs about my value and about what I expect from relationships in terms of sensitivity and availability, right? And so that's how core beliefs, the attachment style, become such important core beliefs in attachment relationships. If I'm preoccupied, then how do I engage? If I'm preoccupied, sometimes I'm really open. Sometimes I'm running away, hoping that you'll pursue me, right? Sometimes, and then if you turn around at all, then I'm going to be, hey, wait, don't leave me, right? So I'm the preoccupied belief system that I can't count on you to consistently show up for me leads me to be seeking constant reassurance, right? Do you still love me? Do you still want to be with me? Well, I know you told me that 5 minutes ago, but is it still true now? I know that you wanted to be with me yesterday. Do you want to be with me today? And the preoccupied person, because they don't have that core belief that they're going to matter to the other person and that the other person is going to be sensitive and available to them, they are ever seeking but continuously doubting. Well, there again, if that's what it's like to engage with me and you're healthy, what are you going to do?
Just keep trying to draw it out. You keep trying to make it clear, make it obvious, and break down any of these.
Right. You're gonna say, hey, you said this, or I said this. Um, do you still want to do this? Do you still believe this? Right? You confront that, and and that breaks that process down, and it makes the dysfunction that covert dysfunction overt, and it gives me an opportunity to change. Right? It gives me an opportunity to trust that you're going to value me, and to trust that you're not going to bail on me. If I continue to engage in an ambivalent or preoccupied way with you, an anxious way with you, and you're healthy, eventually, what are you going to do?
Well, yeah, it's not looking good.
Yeah,
I can't imagine.
yeah. If you're healthy, uh, eventually, my preoccupied engagement with you will ruin that relationship, right? And
Mhm.
and there again, when that happens, my core belief is going to interpret that as, of course that happened. That's what always happens. And so that's why attachment style is such a powerful core belief, because it foundationally influences the way that we engage in the most important relationships in our lives. And we almost always end up getting exactly what we expect. We don't even realize we're doing it. The data on divorce, I think, is relevant here, because over 50% of first marriages end in divorce, and over 60% of second marriages end in divorce. One of the reasons for that is that the same underlying process almost always exists in second marriages that existed in first marriages.
Yeah.
And if it didn't work the first time, it's not any more likely. In fact, it's less likely to work the second time, right? Um, and then, interestingly, in third marriages, the divorce rate drops way down. And typically, that's for a couple of different reasons. One, a lot fewer people marry three times, and so it's a smaller number. And two, it's typically in between the first or the second and the third marriage when people really do the work that we're talking about and start breaking that apart and saying, what in the world is this? Why didn't this work? And that's when they start doing the things that we're talking about here today. Thoughts?
Well, again, I think it's really sad that most of us have to have some awakening in our life that makes us want to look at ourselves closer and start being more proactive. Um, and it would be really nice if we would take it upon ourselves and just start looking at ourselves, because it really is actually a lot easier, right, than waiting between the second and third marriage
Absolutely.
for it finally to. But at least, I mean, at least it's happening, I suppose, right, at some point.
Yes,
But for
yes, it is,
ourselves,
but
we don't want that.
no,
I like feels that.
and when I work with people that are contemplating divorce, what I normally say, divorce is always a bad idea. It's always a bad option. It comes with predictable negative consequences, for both people, for everyone involved, children and people.
Yeah.
And there are times when it is the best of the bad options.
Right.
So there are absolutely times when divorce is a healthy and a good idea, but it always comes with a price tag and negative consequences. So you're right. You're much better off to fix what you've got than to throw that away and try with something else. So, um, other thoughts, Alisha, on core beliefs, or kind of rewiring the brain?
And the thing that I don't know, I try to bring up a lot with myself is just that, every little bit matters. Like any little bit of purposefulness, it doesn't have to be, because I tend to be an all or done. Like I'd like to get it all. And the truth is offering just a little bit. Every little bit makes a difference. And willing to see ourselves just a little bit more clear, it all makes a difference. And so
And it
it's
adds
something,
up.
it adds up.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it really does.
Not
And
all of us can attack 10 things at once. It's okay. Just start with one and just start looking at it closely and just see where it goes. But at least it gets you going somewhere.
yeah, well, I really appreciate you joining me. It's always fun to talk to you, and it's been fun to talk about these things. Um, I think, just kind of in wrapping up remarks, I think that it's super important to remember the power that we have in rewiring the brain. Most of us never substantially change our core beliefs, just like most of us never change our attachment styles. Um, or I guess, and we absolutely have the power to do so if we will. And that's one of the main messages that I would like to convey, is that um, core beliefs are not set in stone. They're malleable, and they are things that really influence the way that we think and feel throughout the day, and they're absolutely changeable if we're willing to do so. Any final thoughts on your side, Alisha?
Oh, well, I mean, not really. It's been great. I really love Denim's ideas. He's really passionate about what he does, and I feel like he really tries to live it in his own life. And I mean, I think that shows, right? Anytime that someone's really trying to make their own life better and make the world a better place. So I really love working with Denim too.
Well, thank you. You're very kind. I appreciate you guys joining us and tuning in. And if you have any questions about this, don't hesitate to shoot me a message. And if it feels like I haven't explained something clearly or whatever, I want to make sure that I'm helpful. So if you need more information to be helpful, please let me know. Thanks.